grew up in a toxic environment and you had narcissistic parents and also had siblings, these relationships can be very difficult as adults. I'm going to go over some of the behaviors you'll often see in these difficult relationships. I've made a list of the ones that are the most common in my office. You can see a lot of jealousy in siblings. You can see an unhealthy amount of competition with one another. A sibling can be emotionally abusive towards you. You can see these relationships get violent or physical during arguments. You have a lot of guilt in the relationship. They can discard you easily as though the relationship meant nothing. They can always side with the abusive parent. You will see a lot of talking about each other behind each other's back. You feel responsible for rescuing them. They can treat you like you are beneath them. Okay. Now, how did we get to this point with our sibling that we dearly love and grew up with? There's actually a few ways that you got to this point, but sadly, none of them had to do with you and your sibling. This started out when your sibling was born. In a narcissistic family dynamic, there's always going to be a scapegoat and a golden child. When you have unknowingly been put in these roles, this creates a lot of resentment and anger between the siblings. Now, according to human behavioral studies, your brain is in a low brainwave frequency called theta. This is like a hypnosis state, and you are here from birth to age 7. And when you are at this brainwave frequency, you don't know the difference between real or make-believe. And so everything a child takes in is now being hardwired into their program. And after the age of 7, this program now sets you up for behaviors that you will carry with you throughout the rest of your life. Now let's look at how this can negatively affect us in a narcissistic family dynamic. Let's say you and your sibling come home from school and you both hand your parents your report card. Your sibling has all A's and the parents begin to praise the sibling and then hang the sibling's report card on the refrigerator. You tried your best and they see your report card and they make a comment like, "You could have done better. You need to try harder. Why can't you be more like your sister?" Or "Why can't you be more like your brother?" When comments like this are made, it automatically creates jealousy and resentment in the sibling that did nothing. But you're always put in competition with one another, and it's always going to leave one of you feeling less than. Now let's look at this another way. Let's say you and your sibling grow up in a home with an alcoholic parent. The golden child never gets in trouble with this parent. They're always praised, and they may even get some of the parent's attention. However, the scapegoat child is the one that the parent takes their narcissistic rage out on when they've been drinking. This, again, will cause resentment between you and the sibling. Human behavioral studies also show that if you give one child a hug and embrace that child when they come in from school, but you don't hug the other child and embrace the other child, that causes jealousy between children. That when you do one thing for one child that shows love, nurturing, any type of caring, that you automatically do that for the other child as well to prevent them being jealous and envious of one another. Here's another example. Let's say you grew up in a home with parents that were not mentally stable. And so because of that, you ended up taking care of your sibling most of the time. In these homes where one child has now become the caregiver for the siblings, and this child is being robbed of their childhood, there is now resentment in this child toward the siblings because they've had to take on the role of parent. When a parent puts a child in the place of the caregiver, this also makes it hard for them to walk away from the narcissistic sibling as they get older because they feel a responsibility to this child. Another thing you see in narcissistic families with the siblings is triangulation. Narcissistic parents will intentionally poke at one child to get a reaction and then involve the other child in it to turn the other child against the other sibling. One example that I have of this, and this is fairly minor, but with this done repetitively over an amount of time, it becomes a big deal. I had a client tell me that their father used to poke them and make them think the sibling did it. And then they would start a fight between the sibling, and then the father would laugh and be like, I was just playing, it was me. And he's laughing about it, but now both siblings are pissed off at each other because he started this fight. Another way parents cause triangulation is narcissistic parents will create a problem that doesn't even exist to cause a fight between the two of you and then create the solution. Narcissistic parents will also use gaslighting on you and your siblings, like coming to you and saying, well, your sister told me this and this and this, and then going to your sister and saying, they told me this and this and this, and they've now twisted the narrative. Then cause a fight between you and your sibling, and then the narcissistic parent will say, I never said it like that. You totally took that out of context. The narcissistic parent will turn you into flying monkeys against your siblings. Another toxic behavior you see in narcissistic homes is they do not keep your secrets. They will share your secrets with your siblings. This again causes resentment between you and your siblings. If you have went no contact with a parent or parents and you are still around these toxic narcissistic siblings, you are still in abuse. The sad thing is most of the time though, the siblings aren't even aware of why they're angry with each other or why they have this deep-seated resentment for each other. So if you're in this type of relationship with a sibling, what can you do about it? The first thing is remove the narcissistic parent from your relationship. You have to set firm boundaries that if you and I are going to be in a relationship, what happens between us, any conversation that is between us, we no longer involve narcissistic mom or dad. They have to remain completely out of the relationship. If you choose to keep your parents in the relationship with you and your siblings, this is not going to be a healthy relationship because the parent still has a scapegoat and a golden child, and they are still pitting you against each other. After you have removed the parent from your relationship, meaning you don't call this parent and ever talk about your sister or brother, and this sibling agrees that we're never going to talk to our parent about our relationship. Once you have completely removed them from your relationship, the next thing that you can do is begin to set boundaries with the sibling. Become aware of the triangulation in your relationship. Become aware of the fact that one or both of you at some point have been flying monkeys. Become aware of the emotional abuse that you're enduring in these relationships. And then begin to set healthy boundaries. If you see that you're the one that is being toxic toward your sibling, begin to notice that and work on these things yourself. Because this does not just stem from things that you and your siblings went through together in childhood. Again, you guys were pit against each other since you were little. Now, if you notice that the sibling is still involving the narcissistic parent, or they are still violating boundaries after you have set them, and the relationship is still unhealthy, the next thing you can do is go gray rock. This is where you keep all things very fake and superficial. You don't have deep conversations. You don't involve them in your life. You don't give them anything to use against you. Now, if none of that works for you, you may have to go low contact or no contact. If you begin to notice that you do have a very unhealthy relationship, this person isn't willing to work on it, they're not going to change, this is who they are, then you really need to become aware of the fact that the narcissistic parents could have very well have raised a narcissistic child, meaning that you may have no choice but to go low contact or no contact because you're just dealing with another narcissist. Often siblings will stay in these toxic relationships out of guilt or feeling like they're obligated to. You may feel like this sibling come from the same rough background that you did, so that makes it hard for you to walk away because you know their trauma as well, but you're not responsible for their trauma. You can't heal their trauma. You can't fix it. You literally can't do anything for them when it comes to that. And only them themselves can fix that. And until they're ready to work on themselves, then they're just going to make you pay for the pain that they've endured. If you do have narcissistic siblings, they are not going to change. This is who they are going to be, and you have to decide at some point, do I choose me or do I stay in this toxic relationship? Walking away from toxic family members can be heartbreaking. So if you see that you have these siblings and that you are going to have to walk away, it's important that you mourn these siblings just like you would had they died, because there is a lot of pain that you're holding on to, a lot of anger and resentment, and then the hurt that you've had to let go of someone that you truly do love. So when you do go through that process, you have to mourn this person. Walking away from toxic siblings is never easy, nor is it ever fair, because you and your siblings didn't ask to be put in these roles and end up where you are today. But unfortunately, that's what it is. But don't ever feel guilted by anyone in your family for choosing you, for putting you first, for putting your mental health first, and walking away from anyone in your life that is toxic or abusive. We should always choose us first and love us first. And I know that we're taught the total opposite of that we're taught to give and give and give of ourselves to try to save other people. But when we do that, we're putting ourselves in a position to allow these other people to drag us down with them. Trying to save people who cannot even save themselves or aren't even willing to try will exhaust you. Walking away from your sibling doesn't mean that you don't love them and that you don't value the role that they played in your life. But it is okay to walk away in love if this isn't healthy for you.